Hello, everybody. I'd like to first of all bring everybody on and have them get comfortable. And I'd just like to reflect, it's been a year since I was here at ArabNet, and last year I was speaking, not hosting a panel, and I was talking about e-commerce. And it seems strange that only 1 year later I'm talking to you guys and hosting a panel about social entrepreneurship. But I see the connection. And I see that the world is changing rapidly, and the concepts of doing business are changing rapidly. And I see the connection between e-commerce, and I see in 2 to 3 years' time, I see what I call an intersection moment, or an intersect moment, between what might be considered today the base of the pyramid, and how things like e-commerce and e-services intersect with that base of the pyramid. So it's not so far removed that I could be talking about e-commerce 1 year and then over here talking about social entrepreneurship the next. So I want to get started. I want to thank you all for coming. You're many more people than I thought would be coming after lunch on the last day of the conference, when everyone was a little bit sleepy and keen to get some shopping done and get into town or get on a flight. So without further ado, I'd like to invite each of our wonderful panelists to introduce themselves, and I'll start on my right, and we'll work all the way down here. If you'd like to introduce, just tell a few words about how you got to where you are and what you're doing.
Thank you, Con. My name is Mediano Centini. I'm actually Director of Corporate Development at OSN, but I'm here because of my spare time job, which is C3, Consultant Coach for a Cause. C3 started about 1 year ago. Group of friends and friends of friends. We started from the corporate world. We started volunteering to support social entrepreneurs in their journey from an idea to actual business. And the initiative is based in Dubai. It's growing very, very fast. We have now more than 130 volunteers from the corporate world, about 100 aspiring social entrepreneurs, of which 20, 30 are actually already established businesses. So it's quite of an exciting space that I happen to be in.
Thank you.
This is really awkward. My name is Lina Lailemi, and I'm the co-founder of 3BL Associates in Bahrain. So I'll just tell you a quick story of how I got here. When I moved back to Bahrain after doing my master's, I knew I wanted to work in the social impact space, but I'd already worked in the private sector, and there was no real businesses, at least in Bahrain, that married business and profitability with social good. I'd worked for the government, so I knew that was not the best place to necessarily make a difference, because there's a lot of bureaucracy and just very outdated systems, a lot of tribalism. I'd worked with a lot of NGOs, and so I'd encountered a lot of the inefficiencies and a lot of the lack of financial sustainability. So when I moved back, and I also noticed that with a lot of NGOs, at least in Bahrain, I can't speak for the whole region, there's a lot of competition in the social impact space, and not in a good way. So people don't actually collaborate. They're competing to solve social issues. They're competing for grants. There's a lack of resource sharing and knowledge sharing. So my brother and I co-founded 3BL Associates as a social impact consultancy and think tank that would advise organizations on how to maximize their social impact, but through collaborating. So we would always bring together the private sector, civil society, and government for collective impact. And 3BL, if you're wondering, stands for triple bottom line, which is the paradigm that you have to, so you have your bottom line, which is profit, and then the triple bottom line is you have to have social equity and environmental sustainability as well as economic growth. And it's only where those three areas overlap that you actually have sustainable development.
Thank you very much. Dina.
My name is Dina Sharif. I wear a lot of hats. I'm on this panel representing Silitech. I'm an advisor with them working on their civic engagement and corporate responsibility initiatives. I also am a co-founder of my own initiative called Ahead of the Curve. I came to this space, I think, purely by accident, really. I spent about 8 years working on rural development, community development projects in sub-Saharan Africa. big donor-funded projects. And then I decided, waste of time, waste of money, and decided to work on issues related to philanthropy and civic engagement. So I founded something called the Gerhardt Center for Philanthropy and Civic Engagement at the American University in Cairo. We're really focused on how can we use local resources to promote public good and social change. And I think really this social entrepreneurship was a natural next step in the sense of how can we create businesses, how can the private sector integrate a social aspect within its operations, and also encourage young people to start businesses that revolve around solving social, environmental, and cultural challenges.
Thank you. And finally, Dalia.
Hey everyone, I'm Dalia Othman, and I work for Suktel. I'm sort of maybe the techie geek in this panel. They're all like entrepreneurship experts. And I'm here to sort of talk to you about Suktel as a social enterprise. We're a mobile services company, and we focus on SMS technology. We started off back in 2006. It came up as an idea when three Palestinians actually realized that there's this gap, informational and communication gap between job seekers and young graduates graduating from universities and job employers. So there was a lot of research and study done, and they realized that in order to do this, we could use technology to sort of bridge that. And with the low internet penetration rate, they figured what better than to use a cell phone. Everyone has a cell phone here, and mobile penetration is above 90%. So using a basic sort of SMS technology, they managed to bridge that gap between job seekers, match a job seeker with a job employer. And I guess I'm here to talk about that experience.
Okay, those are the very short intros, thankfully. I'm going to treat this a bit like a startup pitch, okay? Because a lot of you are entrepreneurs and a lot of you invested. And so I'm going to say, what is the problem that we are trying to solve is the first thing I'm going to throw out there. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? And what is the solution? Or what is the problem we're trying to solve? Why has nobody else solved it before? I think I'd like to start with Dina. You've got some good ideas on what is the problem we're trying to solve and why hasn't it been solved?
What is the problem I'm trying to solve?
Social entrepreneurship,
I think,
impact, investing.
I think if we're talking about the Middle East, since this is an Arab conference, I think we have a number of challenges in the region, specifically things like job creation, education, healthcare, access to healthcare, education. So social entrepreneurship for me is really about finding solutions, bringing an entrepreneurial mindset to find solutions to some of our biggest challenges. So, for example, for Silitech, they're really adopting this issue of job creation, employability, and enterprise development. And when you think about all of the opportunities that can come from restructuring your businesses and developing more inclusive business models, so tackling the C&D classes, say C&D classes or pro-poor business models, or Khan will have a number of other things, other ways to describe that.
Base of the pyramid.
Base of the pyramid. The opportunity for job creation is immense, and the opportunity to actually create businesses, expand economies, make money, but also solve major challenges that we face are quite huge, and nobody's really thinking about that opportunity.
What is okay, I could start with who are our competitors? Who are the competitors in this space? And if I'm an entrepreneur, what do I care about job creation as an outcome? What are the opportunities for me? I'm thinking more of as a business people thinking about getting into this space. As a business, what's the opportunity in this space?
Business people, entrepreneurs are all about finding solution or finding an opportunity, right? So you're an entrepreneur, you spot an opportunity, you build a business model around that. So when we talk about social entrepreneurs, the new sexy term, it's about finding an opportunity in the challenges that we all face and building a business around that. It's like any techie, geeky entrepreneur, if you want to call it that, Dalia, which you're not. But it's exactly what Suktel did. They saw an opportunity and they're building a model around that. and there's a lot of public benefit to what they're doing, while at the same time they're creating jobs and making money. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. Medea, I'm going to put you on the spot now. In terms of the opportunities that are there for entrepreneurs to exploit and to make money and to create jobs and to create services for base of the pyramid, why are these opportunities, why are they there? Why are there so many opportunities? Why is the market ready for this?
Yeah, first of all, I think that basic needs, no matter where they are, if it's bottom of the pyramid or it's in our communities, even if it's not at the poverty level, basic needs are a very good business opportunities because those businesses are more reliant to volatility, to crisis. We have plenty of examples of services and products even from last century that now we give for granted, but that at that time eventually were definitely socially innovative and socially impactful. So a lot of best or big next ideas could be in that space, and that's why it's so exciting, because it provides opportunities to really build big businesses with good margins that can also leverage, in particular in this conference, I think it's an interesting aspect, leveraging social media. It's, I would say, easier for something that also has a social impact because it can go viral much easier, in an easier way. So there are many different aspects that make those enterprises interesting, not only from young entrepreneurs willing to find the next big thing, but also for investors. And I could go on and on. I have a lot of ideas on what are the benefits of being socially impactful.
We'll come back and look at some specific examples from everyone has some examples in their mind about what is a business that's been successful business and has an impact. I'm sure you all have some really good ones to share with us. Before I get there, NGOs have been working in this space for 50 years, 30 years. Governments are supposed to be providing some of these services. Why is that not working? And how is that an opportunity? Lena?
First of all, I believe in multi-stakeholder development and approaches to addressing social issues. I think that no government in the world, regardless of how efficient or non-bureaucratic it might be, can solve all of the social issues, and nor should it be expected to. I think that NGOs, similarly each sector has very different strengths. So civil society has particular strengths, such as actually reaching certain communities. They have certain networks. The private sector has more financial sustainability, greater efficiency. Government is able to actually change policies that are required to change the conditions in which these social problems arise in the first place. And I really see social entrepreneurs as kind of straddling all three sectors, because you're neither a business, you're not really an NGO, and you're not really government, but you're somewhere in the middle, and you're trying to be all three, and you're trying to bring all three together. I think also, like I mentioned in the introduction, and please, if you disagree with me, there might be differences across the region, but from what I see, the NGO sector, there's one word I'll say, I see a lot of ego in the region when it comes to solving social issues. So I see NGOs that are both working towards, a certain cause, but each NGO wants to be, I'm the one that solved the issue, I'm the one that, and they won't actually collaborate. It's the same with governments. You have, ministerial changes, and the old minister doesn't want the new minister to take credit for maybe the strategy that he's put in place, so he kind of messes everything up before the new minister comes. So in that sense, it's not really sustainable, and it's not really working.
Does anybody else like to have a comment on the Lena, or is it Dina, or Dalia?
I don't think you want to hear my...
I actually would like to just add one aspect. NGOs and in general non-profit efforts are very impactful whenever it's an emergency kind of situation. So when it's an emergency, a natural disaster, a war, extreme poverty, it's difficult to just jump into social entrepreneurship and be successful. There is a stage in an economic, like in areas where the economic development is just starting, where NGOs are the answer, at least for a certain period of time. And then social enterprise can come in and build sustainable answers in a better way. So I think every single entity or any type of entity has to play a role in the social impact equation. And I think there will be work for everybody for a long time.
Okay. I think, I mean, I didn't do a survey of the audience, so maybe we can do this now, a quick survey. First of all, how many people think that they could create a business for the base of the pyramid? How many think that they could reach a business, come up with an idea? Hands right up so I can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A little spread over there. So there are 7 out of, let's say, 70 or 80 or 100 people here who believe they could do that.
I'd be intrigued to find out how many of you use actually technology as the basis of your model.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Roughly the same hands, right?
Well, how many people actually qualify themselves as social entrepreneurs in this room? How many of you want to be social entrepreneurs?
Oh, that's encouraging. There's some people here. Okay, so it might be a good exercise now to think about maybe some misconceptions or preconceptions about what the base of the pyramid is, about whether they have spending power, what they spend their money on. So I know that some of you have access to research on this and can give us a sort of an idea about what do the base of the pyramid spend their money on in different parts of the region or different parts of the world. Just as to give an opportunity. Yes, please, Dalia.
Well, no, you could leave that question to them, sort of ask it to them.
You're looking at me, Dalia. You're looking at me, aren't you? So I think. So I'm going to actually start. I was attending the panel before this, and it was all about online shopping, using credit cards, and it's safe to buy things using credit cards in Lebanon, and that's really cool. But I kind of have to question how sustainable online shopping is when the majority of the population doesn't have access to credit cards, probably won't shop online. So you're really still tapping into that, top part of the pyramid, that A and B class, where you're going to make money, but there's a huge amount of money that can be made by tapping into the billions at the bottom of the pyramid. So that's where the mass market really is, and nobody's thinking about that. So what I would have liked to have seen this morning with some of the young people presenting ideas is, we're creating these online shopping websites, but aside from that, to keep our businesses sustainable, we're going to start thinking about how we can get access to credit to the rest of the population, because that's how we as a business are going to stay sustainable. And I think that's where the problem is. Nobody's thinking long-term enough to realize that until you're inclusive, you're not going to be sustainable. At some point, you're going to stop. Exclusivity is never sustainable in any part of life or in any part of how we function. So I think if you're talking about research and numbers, so in Egypt, we recently did a study on base of the pyramid investing, really geared towards talking to large companies and saying you need to change the way you do business and become a lot more inclusive. And what we discovered is that really at the grassroots level, the so-called poor that everyone refers to, were paying a premium, paying more than what I would pay for basic products. They were building houses for 20 to 30% more, buying, bread, basic things for a higher price. So the myth that the poor don't pay is in fact a myth. They do pay, and they pay a premium, and I think nobody's really thinking about how to get quality products and services to them. So there's a huge economic opportunity there. There's a huge job creation opportunity there in terms of creating new product lines, and there's a huge service to be given to society, which is to include all of these people within the market and giving them access to things they wouldn't normally have access to. And that's the beauty of being inclusive. So you can make money, do good for society, create jobs,
And you
It's
can
all
make
about
you can
shared
make a lot of
value.
money, or you can just make a little bit of money. Can you make shitloads of money?
Shitloads of money.
Like
I would
bucket
imagine.
loads of money?
I have to say that we piloted an initiative in Cairo with, I don't know who's Egyptian here, but there's something called the Metro Supermarket. They created Khir Zaman, which is a supermarket
Yeah.
for the base of the pyramid. And yes, it was incredibly profitable, and they sold it for millions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, of course it's profitable. You're talking about, instead of the billion at the top, you're talking about the billions at the bottom. But
Okay.
it's about scalability, taking it to scale.
Okay. So that's the market size exercise, and we've done the what's the problem and some of the solution stuff.
Can I add to the market size as well? Because there was a World Economic Forum report last year that basically said that the people at the bottom of the pyramid, so people making less than $8 a day, represent a $2.3 trillion a year market. And these people, and it's been growing at 8% in the last few years. There's around 3.8 billion people at the bottom of the pyramid. $2.3 trillion a year, and most entrepreneurs don't target that market. It's a huge opportunity, not only from a business perspective, but also to make a difference, because it's about inclusion. It's inclusion of those people, whether it's financial inclusion, digital inclusion. So I just wanted to add that to the market opportunity.
Okay, so let's go now into more specifics. I saw a lovely video on this screen yesterday of a fisherman. I think he was in Bangladesh or India or somewhere, and he had his mobile phone and he was going out with his crew into the sea, into the choppy waves, and it was giving him information about where the density of the fish were, what the weather conditions were, what the wave patterns were like. So that he claimed that he was able to then get a much, much better catch ratio and to come back safely and alive. What other things have you seen along those lines, like with Souktel, for example?
Yeah, actually, we have a project in Morocco. I mean, like I said, we started off in Palestine, and we've scaled up to 20 countries plus. And we don't just focus on job matching, but also other projects. And one of them is in Morocco, where we work with farmers in the agricultural sector, and they basically subscribe to this service, and they receive daily SMS messages giving them sort of the daily weather reports and sort of irrigation information, so they know how much to water their plants, their tomatoes, their olive trees. I don't know actually what they plant in Morocco, but and it basically, using that basic technology, they receive all the information, and they get to control all the irrigation systems in their farms. And I just wanted to add something else about the market. It's also important to understand where technology is going. SMS technology is great, and it's great for the developing world, but it's important to see where the trends are going. I mean, yesterday I think there was a very interesting panel, the print to digital panel, and they were talking about how journalism has changed in the past couple of years, and how different papers are now shifting to the different platforms, the tablets and the phones. It's very important to understand where technology, the trends are going, so that if you're a tech company, if you're a tech organization, it's good to sort of plan ahead of time to see where the trends are going, so you could catch up and follow up with that trend as well.
Okay, so you can see that, I mean, let's talk about that through that lens of the future. If you look at 2013 and you look at the pitch that we saw yesterday of something like 18 ideas, very, very difficult to see those today reaching the base of the pyramid because of the technology hasn't intersected with the base of the pyramid. But it's only 2 or 3 years before everyone who holds a mobile phone today, black and white monochrome text phone, holds a smartphone. It's 2 or 3 years. So the businesses we're building today, I think, if you would agree with me or disagree, this is a point of contention maybe. The businesses we're building today, like Wally for personal finance management, like some of the other applications that we saw, can be accessed by the base of the pyramid. And if they can come up with simple models to overcome illiteracy and those other ideas, then you've got a market. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're trying to say?
In a way, yeah. I mean, it's looking at where the trends are going, basically. Like, SMS technology is one thing, and like I said, it's great for the developing world. We use it, and we can tap into a massive market there. Dina, you were saying something about how many users, how many Egyptians have cell phones. I think every Egyptian. You said something about
there are more cell phones in this world than there are people.
Yeah.
More cell phones on the planet than there are people. And the first thing anybody who is at the base of the pyramid, the first thing they'll do is go buy a phone.
Exactly. And not everyone can actually afford a smartphone. And not everyone, like for example, in Palestine, we don't actually have 3G. People were talking about 4G here. We don't have 3G. So SMS technology is huge. And in a lot of other countries, for example, in Africa, same thing. Internet penetration is still not, we can't compare it to mobile or SMS penetration. So SMS technology is still sort of prime and it's usable, but smartphone technology, and there's this latest, I think, survey done by the Berkman Center at Harvard where I think they said they surveyed American US teenagers and they found out 1 of 4 teenagers basically use or access the internet through their phone. So that is something that needs to be looked into as well. Like when you're working in the mobile industry, you might need to look into sort of shifting towards a
I think the
smartphone.
numbers are higher in developing countries. The numbers are higher in developing countries about numbers who access directly through mobile phone, and 70% of Egyptians who access through mobile phone access only through mobile phone. They've never actually touched any other device. So these are quite interesting numbers. Okay, let's switch it around a bit. We're going to try to get some capital injected in here. Who's a VC? Well, I know some VC type people in the room. I'm not going to single anyone out yet. But I get the impression that when entrepreneurs come in front of VCs and angels and they're doing their pitch and they happen to mention that this is an inclusive business or this is a business that is, providing a service for the less fortunate, that turns everybody off in the room. It's like a curtain has been pulled down and everyone's like, ooh, that was interesting. What is it? The problem of the entrepreneur is not pitching it right, or is it education, or is it a misunderstanding on the opportunities in the market from both sides? I mean, how would you like to start us off on this one? Because you've seen the opposite, right?
I disagree. No, what I think is that probably from a venture capital perspective or an investor, there is an appreciation of the additional challenge that a social mission can bring to the thoughts around the business model. But I believe that once this is cracked, once the business model is taught and makes sense, at that point, it's just a matter of being an attractive business, and even if the return on investment is not as high as, it depends what the investor strategy is. If the investor strategy is a little bit longer term and eventually on less volatile businesses, a social enterprise can actually be a very good business to add to a portfolio. And again, portfolio strategy, and maybe we can ask to the venture capitals, I'm not one of those, but if I have a portfolio with a lot of, let's say, high return businesses, adding something that has a little bit of a longer return strategies could be very interesting. So I actually disagree with this.
Okay, does anybody want to jump in on that?
I think there's a problem in the ecosystem as a whole. I think entrepreneurs who are trying to tackle issues that are either social or environmental or cultural, they are unable to present their ideas as viable businesses. And I think on the investor side, they see these businesses as too high risk. I mean, the one VC that I know is sitting right in front of me doesn't think like that, so I can't use him as an example. But they typically see it as high risk, or they see that, this fluffy social stuff should be done through the nonprofit sector, but that can never be taken to scale.
So there's the head and the heart thing?
No, it's a mindset thing, I think...
I make the business decisions in my head and I do charity with my heart.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And there are a lot of businesses that are tackling serious issues like Carm Solar, Carm Solar in Egypt, which is all about focusing on clean energy. And if you ask the CEO or the founder of this business, do you classify yourself as a social enterprise? They'll say, no, I'm a business. I'm here to make money, but I am doing it in a way that is going to help the world. But I'm still a business.
Exactly.
You touched on a point there. A lot of businesses may not see in their business concept that they are doing something that's going to change the world, or they're going to be inclusive business for the base of the pyramid. Sometimes it just is just a product of what they do. So a good example I came across recently was, again, a solar solution for diesel, to replace diesel for extracting water from wells so that farmers could water their crops. It wasn't a big deal like a year ago because there was plenty of diesel in Egypt. Now there's no diesel and it's a crisis, and this guy suddenly got a very viable business. And people are knocking on his door now and saying, hey, where's that idea you had, because this is the time for it. So seeing this kind of thing, it looks like a business, but we would maybe say that this is a business with a social impact. Are you seeing some of that? And I can name 2 from yesterday's pitch that they wouldn't even categorize themselves as a social business.
I think there's a difference, though, between a business with some social impact and a social enterprise, because a social enterprise would actually measure their performance in terms of their social impact and their financial performance, not just their financial. But a regular business, obviously, as a byproduct of what they do, can still have a social impact. But then, are they being socially responsible themselves, so internally? So you might, this solar company that you mentioned might be doing something good for the world, but then, that's not really a social enterprise or a social business if they treat their employees like crap, or, or if they're being irresponsible in other ways.
Employing children, for example.
Sorry?
Employing kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
As an example, yeah.
Okay, so you're going to change your company to 4BL, yeah? Gender, age,
I would actually like to add something to this comment. We are continuously connected in a click. We can boycott big brands, and with no geographical boundaries, in real time the comment reach all the corners of the world. I don't think in the next future any business can really afford to not have a triple bottom line, and it's the consumers that really are driving this kind of phenomenon. It might not be yet as evident, but it's already happening. You have plenty of big brands that are now making a lot of efforts to measure their triple bottom line. And okay, good intentions maybe in certain cases, but in most of the cases it's probably business sense. They need to do so.
Yeah.
So it is a movement that's being driven by consumer side as well. So they see that the practices of slave labor in China, or the practices of certain additions of chemicals into foods or genetically modified foods, unsustainable practices. Consumers are now aware because of all the great tools we've built for them. Consumers are aware, and that's driving businesses to behave, to change their practices, and creating opportunities for new businesses. Yeah,
absolutely.
Basically. When we talk about social entrepreneurship, are we splitting hairs about the name? Are we, why do we say it's a social entrepreneurship, and why don't we say it's just a good business?
I don't know. Why don't we?
Why do you think that we've sort of adopted a label that belongs in the NGO world somewhere, social entrepreneurship and social enterprise, and we're carrying it forward, but it's a completely different thing that we're talking about here now, right? It's no longer a grant system. It's entrepreneurs who are going to drive this forward, we believe, right? Is that what we see? This. Yeah. So why are we hanging on to this old this old name, which confuses a lot? Does anybody get confused when they hear social entrepreneur these days, social enterprise? Does anyone think of a better way of describing? You do, yeah, over there. Is it not kind of the domain of the sort of older way of a grant-funded, a donor-funded, a particular project in a particular village to solve a particular problem that never scales and probably dies after 3 years or 2 years when the grant runs out? Is that social entrepreneurship? Should we stay connected to that, or do you think we should come up with something a bit more? Is there value in continuing with that?
Wait, are you saying, sorry, I'm not sure I'm understanding you. Are you saying that social entrepreneurship as a label is just giving out grants?
No, as a label is confusing because other people have used it and abused it, and it has become associated with people who can easily get access to free money rather than taking the entrepreneur route, which is what all these guys do, which is go and get their friends and put money out of their pockets and bootstrap their business and go for a seed capital and go and pitch for it.
And social entrepreneurs don't do that?
I don't know. You tell me. They do. No, I'm not saying this is the problem with the name. I'm saying the name has been brought from another era, a 20-year-old era about sustainable business. and we called people who are in sustainable business social entrepreneurs. Whereas now, a social entrepreneur is something a little bit different, I think. I'm just asking you if you believe that or you agree with it.
I don't think the problem is with the name. I think the problem is with the donor community, you know, who just want to give away money. This person's doing something creative, it's good for society, we'll give them an award of $50,000. They'll become lazy, they won't become accountable, they don't have to return anything back to their investors. They aren't even going to be rigorous about their social impact. So I think there's a problem from those who are giving the grants.
Well, why wouldn't any entrepreneur just go to that free money?
They would. That's what I'm saying. It's a problem in the ecosystem. If there's free money, of course it's the same with entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship has become a very sexy word in the Middle East. You have a lot of entrepreneurship competitions where you win an award and you get a free, it's what, $50,000 award for being a top startup? Why not equity? Why not make them work for that?
Yeah.
So there is a risk when you're giving away free money, I think.
At the end of the day, business principles or business frameworks also help people working harder for some reason. When you have a target, and this could be a financial target or a social impact target, but something to look at and try to strive to it, the dynamic just changes. So I believe that calling it in a different way or eventually label it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of definitions, but it could help give a little bit of a different dynamic to the social impact sector eventually. Calling it enterprise can just add some more dynamic
emphasis
to the sector.
Okay. I'd like to open up, if you don't, do you want to add something to
yeah,
that? Yes,
I was just going to add, I completely agree with what you're saying about too much free money enabling laziness and not enough entrepreneurialism, but I'm not totally against initial seed funding just to help you jumpstart, maybe look at it as part of investing in the R&D or, supporting the R&D. Even, some of the most famous social enterprises, or one of the first, which is Grameen Bank, which Mohammed Yunus founded, microfinance institution. He started that in the 80s, and now, he's a Nobel laureate, and the bank has been profitable, I think, every single year since 1983, except for 3 years. And even that was started with a grant from the Ford Foundation. And so I'm not totally against an initial jumpstart kind of seed fund.
So you would see the role of grants in the friends, family, and fools, yeah? The grant could be the
well,
the
4 Fs and foundations.
And foundations.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a new 4 Fs to go and get seed money from, which is interesting.
I thought there were 3.
We're 4 now. We're friends, family, fools, and foundations.
We added foundations.
I'd like to open up the floor for questions, and Nina's hand goes straight up there. So
we've been having a conversation a little bit about sort of why people get, you're saying people sort of think of social entrepreneurship, they start to yawn, they think you're just doing the world a service, you're not a real capitalist. And in the tech entrepreneurship scene, we've seen people like Mark Zuckerberg make tech entrepreneurship look very sexy. We have these very prominent examples that people can look to kind of, aspire to make a lot of money. Who are those rock stars in the social entrepreneurship world, not talking about microfinance, but just talking about examples? Forgive the ignorance of my question, but who are those exciting examples that a young entrepreneur could look to when we go to think about defining ourselves as a social enterprise?
that's an awesome question. Yeah. So would you like to?
I mentioned one that I like, although it's been, the full idea has been criticized for many different reasons. One is Tom's from California, and actually it's been copied by big shoes makers these days. If you're not familiar with Tom's, it's basically a shoemaker that for each pair of shoes sold, donate 1 pair of shoes to the needy. And it's quite of a successful one. It's really being copied by sneakers, by a lot of other companies because it's successful, it's growing fast, margins are good. This is an example. I don't know if you have others in mind. I have even examples from Dubai. Another one is Back to Basics. It's a company giving training for teachers, maids, young parents, etc., on first aid techniques when accidents happen with kids, and it's a very successful one as well. Again, it's a matter of finding a need and serving it. I can go again on and on. Maybe I want to leave some other examples to you guys.
Who's the rock stars?
Souktel is an example.
Souktel, rock star.
I'm just going to sit quietly here and have you point that out.
We have a rock star on the panel.
Yeah.
She's being very non-rock starish. Come on, get your guitar out. What have you done as Souktel? Like, what are the highlight, big headlines? Who wants to be the next Souktel, and why would they want to be the next Souktel?
I mean, like I said, we identified a specific problem in the community. We have a problem of unemployment and a gap, an informational gap between job seekers and employers. So we looked at the technology available and we realized that SMS technology would best fit and help fix this issue. From there, we've scaled up. We started in Palestine, scaled up to 20 countries, and we're using the technology for other projects, whether it's civic engagement, it's health, education. So again, we managed to identify the problem, found the solution through technology, and managed to scale it up, and it does make profit.
How much? What's the company worth today?
I can't say.
Oh, come on.
Sorry.
These are the juicy things we want to find out. Lina, do you have any examples?
There are loads of examples, I think, in the region. I think nobody's highlighting them. I visualize Palestine as a social enterprise. You'll hear about that in the next panel. There's Cedar Environmental in Lebanon. There's Carm Solar. There are ideas that are coming out. I was just saying the day before yesterday, I was in Dubai, and a girl, 22-year-old Egyptian woman, came to me with a business plan that was all about, so 60% of the workforce in Egypt is in the informal sector, and she said, a lot of women work as housekeepers, and it's all an informal sector. I want to completely institutionalize this, create more jobs for these women, make sure that they're protected, they have contracts, they're paying social security, they have health care. It's an incredibly profitable model. People will pay extra if you can guarantee quality and a structure and all of that, and it's brilliant. There'll be a lot of opportunities for it. So I think there are a lot of things that will come out if you just give people the opportunity to frame business ideas around that. And I think none of us, this is what Silitech is trying to do, and also ahead of the curve, is to actually document some of these great examples, highlight them, role model them.
Okay, do you have any specific examples? I mean, we all know there's new ones coming. There's lots of new stuff. We see it here, and I see a lot in Egypt. But is there anything that we can say is that's something to aspire to? That's someone I would want to be. I want to follow that person and take that path.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of examples, but I'll try and just use two that I actually have numbers for, because the rest I don't have numbers off the top of my head. But M-Pesa, which is, I would consider social entrepreneurship venture because it's within an existing company. So M-Pesa is Vodafone's service in Africa, and it's basically a mobile banking system. So it works on, the reason they started it initially was to allow people to buy mobile credits using their phones. But what they discovered was people started using it as a form of trading. They were actually using it to buy and to sell, because these people were people who were too poor to have a bank account. So they were financially excluded. M-Pesa actually ended up being, creating this social impact. I think the last figures I remember, they had reached around almost 680 million in revenues. They have over 14 million subscribers in revenues, not profits. Yeah. 14 million subscribers. I mean, it started in Kenya, and now they've scaled throughout Africa. So that's incredible potential. And you're still making money, but you're doing social good. The other example that I have numbers for, which is also entrepreneurial, was Thomson Reuters. They started a service called Market Light in India, which, similar to what you mentioned earlier, it gave farmers crop information, so it gave them access to information on weather conditions, how to treat their crops. It allowed them to share information with each other so they could increase their crop yields. Farmers actually, and the service cost $5 a quarter, so $20 a year, and the farmers actually increased their crop yields by 65%, which is huge, you know, for these people.
Yeah.
So you've created social impact, and in 2009, Thomson Reuters had reached 1 million in sales. So those are, you know, pretty good opportunities, I think.
Yeah. More questions? Anybody has questions? Nina hogging the floor. Any other questions? You've got the microphone, right? It's gone.
Sorry. How do you get companies to transform their mindset from thinking of CSR as something that is, you know, like doing a favor to society and just a marketing tool, and not really as something that is sustainable and can make money?
If I may, but then most often we see companies that are choosing social missions in their CSR strategies. They're choosing social missions that eventually don't have much to do with their business, with their core business, and this creates a little bit of a misalignment. So it's basically a cost. It could be a marketing cost or something else, but it's basically a cost. If at a certain point they are able to align the two, so to find a cause that, first of all, it's close to the heart of their consumers, it's close to the heart of their employees, and eventually can really become viral, can improve the reputation of the company in their close to their core business, then I think the mentality will change. It's a matter of finding the right opportunity for CSR strategies as well, and sometimes it's a lack of data. And I'm talking about OSN, for example. We don't have that many data on data details on what's going on in our customer base in terms of social causes, interests, and so on. So it's always good to gather data, to know your customers, and then eventually find something that can boost your revenues, can boost your profit. It's mind change and also a little bit of lack of data.
Dina, Lina, Dina, Lina.
Lina, Dina?
Lina first,
Lina,
then Dina.
I think there's also an opportunity for the private sector or for companies to partner with social enterprises, which is something we don't see enough of, I think, anywhere. But there's some really great models, and I could go on and on and on, but I'll share one that's relevant to the tech sector. There's a social enterprise called Special Listern, which is based in Europe, in Denmark, and they've also franchised across Europe. They basically take people with autism spectrum disorder and they put them through a 3-year training program where they teach them, I mean, a lot of like IT consultancy skills, but they also teach them a little bit of the social and cultural kind of behaviors that maybe are lacking. And then they partner with different private sector organizations like Microsoft, Accenture, Cisco, and they provide them with internships. So these people actually do IT consultancy, computer networking, those kind of things, internships. So then they come back to Special Listern, and they are actually an IT consultancy. So they go out and do assignments, and they don't look at their disability as a disability. They actually leverage the fact that people with autism have other abilities that maybe we don't have, like, for instance, zero tolerance for errors, persistence, the ability to do things routinely over and over and over and over and over again until they are perfect, things that we might find very boring or repetitive and mundane. And I love that. I love that you know, and this is why they're called Special Listern. They call these people specialists. They're not looking at them as people with a disability, and that's a great way of how the private sector and social enterprise can partner.
It's awesome. Yeah. Come on, Dina, you wanted to say something.
No, I was just going to say something, well, probably a number of things that are very controversial. I think CSR is a dead concept. It's just so burnt out and so meaningless because it has this implication of business and society. And business and society cannot be disconnected. So your business, unless it is taking into consideration its surrounding communities, it's just not going to survive. So it's not about feeling good or doing your social responsibility and adding a CSR department, it really is about survival and about value creation. So I think we do ourselves a disservice when we constantly put ourselves in this mindset of, we have to do good for society when really it's all about survival and sustainability. So it's about a holistic model, really integrating. I think that's what the name of your company is about, right? So triple bottom line. Call it triple bottom line, call it ahead of the curve, call it whatever, It's just that I think the term CSR is just, it really lacks meaning. And I think social entrepreneurship eventually, and forgive me for saying this on this panel, will eventually become the same. Because a good business will just be responsive to the needs and the opportunities that exist in society. The same for the nonprofit sector, the same for public sector. You will just respond to challenges society as opportunities, things that you have to tackle if you want to continue to exist in the long term.
So it's shifting from business for good to just good business. That will be the paradigm shift that you expect to see in the future. In order to survive,
business
in order to
with
be
a purpose.
So in order to be in the environment community that you're in, you have to have a particular care of the way you do business.
It's like being a human being, You're not going to survive in the long term if you're not eating well, if you're not,
Some of them
interacting
do.
with. Some people do, but it's not sustainable, really, is it?
We have a couple of questions over here.
I think that's very optimistic, Dina. I think that realistically, most businesses don't give a darn about the society and anything, and the bottom line is profit. And so to have something like CSR or like social entrepreneurship that has this flag out that's brightly lighting to say some companies do this and do it well, and therefore should be supported by those who care enough and realize that, I think that's really important. I really don't think CSR is going away, and I don't think it should. I think that it would be all well and good to say it will go away because everybody will become so good at that it'll just be a natural part of business. I don't think it is, and I don't think it's going to go that way because there are too many businesses that care profit only. But I think we need to keep pushing at it, and I think we need to expand people's perspectives and have them see that good CSR is good for business, is profitable, and is worthwhile for everybody concerned. And
I don't think we're disagreeing. I think we're saying the same thing.
Right,
we're just
but I don't
changing
think the word,
terminology.
right.
I'm just saying it needs to be a part of the core business practice. And CSR has this implication that it's a side issue.
Right, and I don't think it should be a side issue. My only point is that your suggestion that it will go out, it'll kind of get worn out because everybody will start doing it. It's not going to happen, but the more we push for it, the more and more people will do it, and I think that's really important. So, and it's great that we have so many people, but look, we have all these people here and so few social entrepreneurs right now, and hopefully that will expand.
Thank you for the question. There's someone at the back had their hand up, I think. No? No?
Hi.
Oh, yes, there you are.
I'm Irene, and I work for a social enterprise incubator in Egypt called nascent. And I mean, we spoke about CSR and we spoke about the investors, but we didn't speak about the actual social entrepreneurs and how they feel about what they do. And I feel like one of the major challenges is trying to convince them that making revenue is okay and that it's okay to sustain yourself financially, because to them, they see themselves as they look at profit or revenue as exploiting the bottom of the pyramid, and they themselves don't see the connection between development and business. So I'm just curious to know about your thoughts on how we can kind of change that mentality or convince them otherwise.
If we take a perspective from social impact, I think it's probably the best avenue, meaning at the end of the day, if social impact is increased because of a margin or because of a business model behind, then why not? At the end of the day, do you prefer to be a business with a huge social impact or to be an NGO with a very small social impact? In certain cases, it could be same social impact. In certain cases, it could be inverted. But at the end of the day, let's take the perspective of the social impact. If you can maximize social impact because you have a business model behind, it should be good enough. and good intentions alone. I don't want to say who cares, because it's always good to have good intentions, but that's the final results that counts.
Yeah, so I guess you challenge your social entrepreneurs to show a model where they are making profit and margins from this, and how they could expand the impact that they have by doing that, versus the model that they're in now, the path they're on now, which is limited and based on the next grant that they get. Is that
yeah.
Okay.
Can I say something about that? I think you raised a question that we were just talking about earlier, and I think that way of thinking of it's not okay to make money if I'm doing good for society, this will only change when the nonprofit sector as a whole changes, and if how everyone sees public good in general changes. Because, the problem with nonprofits is that they can never go to scale, because they can never attract the talent they need, because they can never pay the salaries that are required to attract amazing talent from the private sector into the nonprofit sector. They can't implement awareness campaigns for $500,000 because that would be considered not acceptable and inappropriate. But they may have $1 million and decide to spend $300,000 to raise awareness and raise more money. That could actually get them $500 million and allow them to go to scale, as opposed to hanging up flyers that nobody will see at a low cost. So I think, in order to get what you're saying tackled, you need to change the mindset of society in general, which is that when you do public good, you can't make money, you cannot get paid a decent salary, you have to work for free. It's just, it's an entire cultural mind shift. And I'm not saying this is an Arab problem. I'm saying this is a global problem.
Oh, very nice. I like that. Also, we're just about to wrap up. We're getting this signal, which I think is there's a dance. Is it after this? It's like this. We're going to start the dance now. So everybody would like to stand up.
Harlem Shake.
Rockstar mics.
I think we've covered a lot of topics. Unless maybe we could take one more question, or maybe we could have one person give one more point. I mean, which do you want to do? If there's no questions, we'll have one more point from the panel, and then we'll wrap up and say thank you very much and so on. So I don't see any hands up. That's a good start. So if you'd like to sum up leading on from the question about social entrepreneurs in places like Nahdat Mahrusa, who have a longer patient time, is there space for those people, or is it black and white, social entrepreneurship and nothing, or is it businesses with social impact, or the Nahdat Mahrusa model? Is there room for both, and if so, for what? And I'm thinking of things like HarassMap. Right? I don't see HarassMap being a business anytime soon.
You don't see what being
HarassMap.
Oh, HarassMap.
There are things that need to happen there.
It could be a business. Why not?
I can't. Well, you can try that one. Maybe you can go and advise them. Any last comments from the panel?
I think I've said enough controversial things for one day.
I wasn't following the tweets, but I'll check later whether they were controversial or not. I'd like to thank our wonderful panel for a great discussion, and I'd like to thank you all for coming here for us. Thank you very much.